The average mind wanders 47% of the time, but if you can train yourself to shift into a state of deep focus at will, you can get more done in an hour than most people can do in an entire day. We've read dozens of books and papers on this topic and repeatedly came across the same few ideas, so we used them and designed an acronym to help us better remember and apply. The acronym just happens to be FOCUS, and the letters make up a checklist. The idea is to always use this checklist whenever we want to focus, and over time, we condition ourselves to draw a subconscious connection between the checklist and being in a state of deep focus. It's been working pretty well. Many students have messaged us about how it's completely changed their productivity. The disclaimer here is that this method won't work if you're too sleepy, exhausted, sick, hungry, or any other physiological condition. Focus mode is purely a mental skill, so it doesn't fix your physical problems. So if you need to, go eat something or go get some rest before trying to focus. All right, let's dive in. F stands for familiar. If we do something familiar every time before getting in focus, it becomes like a routine or ritual that conditions our brain. Think of how a basketball player bounces the ball exactly 3 times before shooting a free throw, or how a tennis player bounces before serving, or a gymnast prepping with chalk. Those are all examples of a familiar set of actions for muscle memory, but we can do that mentally as well. This is the premise of neuroplasticity. We're molding our brain through repeated familiar experience. We see this in research over and over again. Stephen Kotler describes this in his flow research. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's chart shows the familiar sweet spot highlighted here. Not too challenging and not too easy. Cal Newport has this shut down complete routine, and Donald Hebb sums it up best. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So familiarity can be a lot of things, ranging from something physical, like a desk that you always work at, or putting on the same sweater, or using the same study blanket every time, to something mental, like listening to the same pump-up song, or even running through the same focus checklist and treating it as a ritual to help you achieve this neuroplasticity. Next, O stands for objectives. Have clearly defined objectives on what you're going to be doing before trying to get focused. If you aren't using some sort of calendar to schedule in your focus time, then I'd start with that. The most important thing here is clarity, knowing exactly what you're going to be doing and for how long. So I wouldn't just say write an essay, right? I need to be more specific. Am I writing, outlining, editing, or doing research for the essay? How long will I be doing it for? What I've seen is a lot of authors and writers even have a word goal. So in my effort to publish more books in the coming years, I'm trying to write at least 500 words a day. The more clear your objective is, the easier it is to focus. Clarity also helps us avoid multitasking, which research shows makes us inefficient since we have attention residue when we switch between tasks. Next, C stands for capture. A lot of people forget that distractions come in 2 forms, external and internal. Well, external distractions are things from our environment, like disturbing noises, notifications, or just other people bothering us when we're trying to get our work done. Internal distractions comes from inside our heads, like daydreaming or anxiety or any other distracting thoughts that might come up while we're trying to focus. So capture is how we deal with these internal distractions. David Allen's Getting Things Done summarized it best. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. So for example, it's incredibly difficult to focus when all of a sudden you remember that you need to book a flight for that vacation. So if you try to keep that reminder just stored in your brain, some of your brain is trying to focus while other parts of your brain are trying to not forget about booking that flight. So your attention is divided and focus is broken. Best thing to do is to write it down and offload that distracting thought. If it's not an emergency, it can probably wait an hour while you get your work done and you can tend to that later. Francesco Cirillo in the Pomodoro technique recommends that we have a distraction sheet next to us whenever we work in order to capture distracting thoughts. Cal Newport and Tiago Forte like to use a digital note or post-it while working so they can capture directly on the computer as they work. Next, U stands for urgency. When something with big consequences is looming over us, it grabs our attention. If Mr. Beast offers you $300,000 to hit a target, then 100% of your focus and concentration is going to be on hitting that target. But if Mr. Beast threatens that you lose $300,000 for missing the target, then 1,000% of your focus is going to be on not missing the target. But in reality, we don't always have the luxury of these urgent scenarios, right? We gotta make up our own. For example, you could make a deal with your brother to pay him $100 for every day you don't finish your homework. One of the most underrated and underutilized methods of urgency is time. If you've put off writing that paper until the night before it's due, then you've felt the urgency of time pressure. But in this case, you're panicking, things are out of control, and it just doesn't feel good. There are ways to use time pressure in a less stressful way. For example, the Pomodoro technique. Research has shown that when we work with a timer, this increases our concentration because we feel that time pressure. So if you don't already, try working in 25 or 50-minute intervals with a timer. And it's a good idea to plan your intervals and focus sessions as you're going through the focus checklist. Accountability is also another form of urgency because we're putting our reputation and our personal responsibility on the line. So when we work with a timer with others in a group, this strengthens our ability to focus even more. We do this regularly on the Cajun Koi Discord server where we work in the company of others with a timer. Next, S stands for surroundings. By now, you've gone through almost the entire checklist and you have all the planning done. The last step is to adjust your surroundings to protect yourself from external distractions. This includes removing all the things that shouldn't be there, like your smartphone, video games, distracting pets, or people. This also means having everything that you need within reach, like your books, stationery, pens, pencils, notebooks, water stacks, all that kind of stuff. Because you don't want to be getting up every few minutes and breaking your focus because you forgot to prepare. The thing that people often overlook is the surroundings itself. If your environment is less than ideal, then you should move. Working in the library is way better than working in the living room while your brother is watching anime. And definitely don't try to be productive in bed. Because remember, familiarity, our brains are conditioned to be sleepy in bed and hungry in the kitchen or relaxed on the couch. So be smart about your surroundings and use this science to your advantage.
So a step-by-step run-through of focus mode in action might look something like this. Matty sits down at the workspace that he designated to be his go-to familiar work area. He has a set of actions that he always does before getting in the zone, like putting on his favorite pair of noise-canceling headphones and tuning in to some Cajun Koi music. Oh, and don't forget his focus band, which he saves only for focused occasions. He opens his calendar to see his objectives. He's ready to work on his YouTube channel today, but notice how it doesn't say make YouTube video. That's not specific enough. Today, he's going to do research on dopamine detox for 1 hour, and then he's going to switch over to reading some scientific papers for another hour, start writing the script for a third hour. Bottom line is, he knows exactly what he's going to do and for how long. Before he's ready to start, he prepares a post-it so that he can quickly capture any distracting thoughts while he's working. Oh? Actually, scratch that. He likes to quick capture directly on his Notion scratch pad. That's fine. Once that's done, he sets a timer for 50 minutes to create a sense of time urgency. He plans to work for 50 minutes followed by a 10-minute break and repeat that for 3 cycles for a total of 3 hours of focused work, which is not bad for a good day's work. And finally, before he starts, he checks his surroundings for any last-minute adjustments. He removes all distractions from the area and makes sure that his snacks, beverage, and textbooks are within reach so that he doesn't need to get up mid-session and risk breaking focus. And everything is in its place. Matty has completely run through the entire checklist. His mind has shifted into a state of deep concentration. Focus mode has been activated.
Activating focus mode.
So Matty has been deliberately training over time to a point where getting in focus has become effortless. But remember, before getting in focus, we need to make sure that we're not hungry or sleepy or exhausted or something like that. If you feel like you're always tired, then you should take a look at your sleep habits because that's usually the easiest thing to fix. And conveniently, here are 2 videos that will show you a simple evidence-based approach to restorative sleep for optimal energy.